Hey everybody, it's your old pal Captain J Rab back at Rabble Radio One. And today's my pleasure to interview my friend, the Professor Brian, about the illusory nature of reality. And this is a important topic that when you go outside and look at the world and you think you know what you're talking about, well, it's our intention that you don't, and that you need to learn what it is that is real and what is not real. So don't feel bad by what you think is real and what you don't have. You can think about what is real and feel good about what you know, which is really the most valuable cachet that you can have. So, without further ado, Professor, where would you like to begin this discussion today?
We were talking about the money. Oh, yeah. The money yesterday. Yes, we were talking about where it comes from nowadays. Most people think that it's given by your boss to you, and that the boss has earned it in some way, and has infinite resource, and everything he does is productive. But we live here in San Francisco. We're really watching a completely contrary worldview, as you'd say, an illusory version of what we would guess if we were children, what the real world should actually be. We see destruction of public property, bridges, museums, roads, buildings, the eviction, parks, all paid for with the illusory money. And very few people have been asking in the last, it's been 15 years now since September 11, what was that all about when it's a question of the money, right? Basically, the computers have come in these 15 years, and there are three effects, one of which is to control the information we get. The internet was presented to us as an infinite variety of dissenting opinions. It's not true. It's true you might find somewhere to put your opinion on it, but the large IT corporations are buying the control of it, Google and all the other corporations. Right? One propagandistic version is put out by the government. It's repeated 10,000 times within microseconds. It's all over the world. It's all over everyone's Google pages. Where's your dissenting opinion? I find it very difficult to see. You do a search, dissenting opinions. We should try that someday, see what happens. So one facet of the computer, the application of computers throughout society we've seen, which coincided with about September 11, is the control of almost all of the information by large corporations. The second facet is the news. Isn't created, as you would think, by people being reported on. It's being created by the planners, the social planners, to lead us for the last 15 years into paranoid warfare, basically, and to explain why every single thing that you see is justified. But there's never any dissenting opinion. There's nobody, very few. There might be protests on the street about Ferguson or about the Occupy movement. Very small, and usually it's reported, well, they created some sort of disruption. They broke a window. Right? You don't hear the spokesman, any opposing reasoning of what questions as to what is going on around us. Right? But every day the news is created, and it's actually created in such a way that it's not reporting on the government. The government follows its script every single day. I have a friend in Ohio who understands what's been going on for many, many years. He's been studying this, and he wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the BBC, because that's where the sun never sets on the British Empire. Why? Because God was afraid they would steal everything in the dark. But the themes come out, and we've been seeing this for many years now. CNN, Fox, all the right-wing television stations repeat the same stories over and over, constantly, all day long. They're open 24 hours a day. Okay, So where does that come from? It comes from Rupert Murdoch. It comes from the control group. So you hear about what Congress is doing. Congress just heard it, what they should be doing from the control group that's creating the news. And then they simply pantomime and go along and pretend as if there's some sort of conflict or some sort of disagreement. The other aspect of the computers is the control of the money, right? That's where the money really comes from, right? It's credit, it's his numbers in a computer at this point. I think anybody who thinks clearly about this looks over at the ATM machine and wonders where the money comes from. It comes from a computer. Okay, so the question here is, well, who has the money? Well, the money is created by the corporate control group, the political control group, the people who control all aspects of the news. And there's always some explanation. It's a daily cycle. It's a step-by-step process every day to lead you to think the way we're being told to think. Okay. But the one thing we do notice is that the more money is issued, the more change is occurring, the more rich the rich people say they are, the higher your rent is, right? Isn't that clear? It's pretty clear. And all those questions that you have every day is, well, did that really work, what they told me? Is that really the way it is, right? Is the way it should be, right? How come the school teachers of the schools never, ever seem to get any money, but they can build a high-speed rail train across California, right? This is what they plan. Is that really the right thing to do? Right? We've in fact been seeing since September 11th, all of the big government projects are failures, right? Military aircraft don't work, space shuttle is canceled. Basically the fracking is a horrific ecological nightmare, it's a disaster, right? Every large-scale industrial scientific proposal that is filtered through this control group is wrong, because science does not work by dictatorship. Science is a matter of discussion and understanding. When you're told that this and that is the way it's going to be, nobody who implements it really understands it. So problems occur. It's like trying to get your cable to work sometimes, called the cable repairman. He may not really understand how it works because it's a monolithic structure, the cable company, right? Okay. So we've been told the Internet's going to create divergent opinions and a multitudinous, arena of discussion, when in fact it's created monopoly after monopoly after monopoly in terms of corporate, industrial, financial control. Right? Now, the issue of where the money comes from it's a paradox. This is what you need to understand about the illusion. Okay, it's free money. It's the Obama bucks. That's why they picked him, because they issued $6 trillion in federal debt. They've doubled the federal debt of the real dollar value of it in the last 7 years. That's over 200 years. It's doubled in 7 years, and mysteriously and magically, banks are reporting record profits. Stock market goes up every single day, right? But did you buy any stock? No, there was a collapse. Remember 2008? All of the rich people were bankrupt. For 2 years, the stock market didn't make any profit at all until they picked the black guy to help us out of our dire straits, to bring us on the road to recovery. All it takes is the unlimited control, monolithic control by the corporations of how the money comes out of the computers, and it'll all be fine. Except the paradox is that free money isn't really free. Somebody has to pay for it. If I go to the bank, this is where the money is basically distributed, and they give me $10 million. I'm going to buy your neighborhood with it, which you see actually happening, and I'm going to tear your house down. And I'm going to take that credit, and I'm going to buy a bunch of cement, get a bunch of workers, and build an office tower, right? That I'm going to tell you people are going to move in there, how they pay the rent, the same way I got the money to tear the block down. If you follow this chain of reasoning, it's ridiculous. It's insane, right? If none of those steps is environmentally sound, if none of those steps is feasible, practical, or efficient, all that's happened is they claim they're creating jobs doing this, but all that's happened is they've created debt, but they've created a burden. Somebody has to move all that cement, has to haul away your house that you were living in. You have to find a new house. Right? The new structure they've built has to be supplied with electricity, water supply, environmental support, and all of those things, right? And this is the basic contradiction here. The control of the money is how office buildings in large cities were built in the first place, going back to the 30s, right? The Rockefeller Center, right? How did they build a whole city block of this fabulous high-rise construction when everybody was bankrupt? Because the federal government let them have a loan, which means they got the free money. It was the Roosevelt money, the Roosevelt bucks at the time, okay? If you plan something like that very, very carefully, it's possible, theoretically, to create a public works, like a bridge or a building, it could be a building, that does serve some purpose. Okay. But when you no longer have a democracy because information is controlled, and I forgot to mention the other effect of the computers, the rigged elections. They haven't been counting your vote for 15 years now. You saw them steal the election, right? In front of your very eyes on television, right? A friend of mine said the other day, they didn't steal the election, it's just the other guy that we didn't vote for got to be president, right? But the people who rigged the elections and got so basically hand slapped, got caught doing it publicly, it was the Bushies that wanted to bring in the computers. They've outlawed any other kind of voting system. So they have a computer system with no verification, red states and blue states. We've just seen last November 6 Republicans, all magically, the way they explain this, it's a 50-50 race every time. 335,256, 335,257. So it's so close. This is when you know you're being lied to. Ask anyone in any particular place, anywhere in the United States, if the society or the little town or the city you live in or the district is 50-50. Exactly, the same number on each side. It's ridiculous. That's what we were told in the election, the fraud of 2000, same sort of thing. And it always just goes the other way. It went for the Republicans. And then they gave us 3 explanations for it. They said, there's a backlash against the black people, the man in the White House. I don't really notice that in this society. That's why they picked him, because it's made getting away with murder and theft that much easier, because nobody will really seriously criticize him, right? If this is a Bushie, and the police officer had shot the black man in the street, there would be much more going on here with violence, physical destruction of property, okay? But because they picked the black man, he said 2 things about all of that. He said, black men do commit crimes. That was his first statement. He didn't say anything about the police. And the second thing is, well, whatever the grand jury said, we have to abide by that, even though it was a completely rigged system, and it was a secret trial, basically, and they brought in false witnesses, right? Okay. But very little actually goes farther than some signs on people coming together on the street for a little while, right? But the rigged elections are the real key to what's going on here. It's not a 2-party system. There are no liberals. There's nobody that's a Democrat anywhere in a society that is rigging the elections, and all the candidates are chosen by the control group. Okay, so it's the money, the information, all the decision making, including really considering all the vast technological, large-scale projects and planning that you hear about constantly. Right? Now, I agree, it does create some jobs. Okay, but does it create products? Does it create a livable environment? At what cost? Right? It's strange that these developments always have to take place in such a location as San Francisco, where we already had a perfectly functioning city with lots and lots of jobs. Right? Wherever something is stable, where people have democracy and have a local standard of living that they protect, they have rules and laws such as rent control, for instance. The control group, this is why they call it globalization or neoliberalism. All those things have to change, because our giant corporate, can opener and pry bars are going to pry over your little town, right? Boink, there it goes, right? Factory closed, river changes course, pollution's over here, right? Got some holes drilled, had to knock down the city hall. After we sold it first, right? Have to rename the town, right? Corporatopia. Right? So that's pretty much what I had to say.
That was succinct and profound. And if you're playing along at home, I hope you got that and are keeping up with what's going on in this discussion. And you can always hit the rewind button and check in with it later. I have a question for you. So I'm a techie, and I want to go to San Francisco and buy a house. So how do I do that? How do I afford that? You know, I just got out of college, and I got like, you know, $150,000 student loan to pay, but I still, you know, nothing's going to stop me from moving to San Francisco because, hey, this is where it's at, folks, right here. This is like no other place in the world. This is, I'm just kidding, actually. So hold on a second. Here's what Brian has to say about that.
Well, I was speaking a bit too abstractly, I think. I tried to point out the fact that there is an entirely new level of the economy that's been created by the computers. It had some basis in early on, you know, for years, since going back to the 30s, they used to be called the Freemasons, right? You know, nobody talks about the conspiracies of finance anymore, so the computers come in. There's isn't one word about it, because they don't have to have secret societies anymore and meet and have handshakes. They have computers. They're called a banking system, and it's linked with the stock market, and it's linked to the federal treasury, right? They went bankrupt in 2008, quote, what the economy is on that level. It's terrorism against the American citizen. It is economic terrorism. You're going to lose your job unless you let us do this, right? We're going to tell you what prices are. We're going to tell you what your wages are, right? There's absolutely no democracy. There's no discussion in it, and it's a monopoly-driven process. All of the products, all of the actual goods are not made in the United States mainly anymore. It was very largely in China. So here's an example to answer your question, right? Corporations want you, this is the key of this illusory level of the economy, to think that they are telling you the truth, that they produce goods and services. They don't. They control goods and services. Goods are produced in China, in Asia, right? Okay? So what the corporation needs to do to convince you of its power is to disrupt anything that's going on. And you'll see this in the newspaper. The minute, you know, one XYZ corporation, you know, has billions of dollars of stock offerings with no product and no revenue, you know, Snapchat, you know, was on the news last week, you know, is Snapchat worth $15 billion? No, it isn't. It's worth anything. Who paid $15 billion? Who paid $33 billion for Google? Well, what's Facebook do for money? Nobody pays a dime to use Facebook. And, of course, because the entire information process is step by step, day by day, controlled and fed to us, they'll come up with a plausible, sort of a place marker. It isn't really an explanation, but it's like something to just take up that question, move that question to a place that doesn't bother you. Say, oh, it's advertising, right? Advertising. How could, say, Facebook have $45 billion a quarter when that's 5 times more than the entire profit of the top 5 major U.S. industrial corporations? The profit. I mean, how can they be making more in advertising than the people who advertise with them have in profit by a factor of 5 or sometimes 10 if you add all the internet, you know, stock profits up, right? There's no way. They don't produce anything in terms of goods, but they control goods. So into Costco and into this Bay Area comes a flood of Chinese goods, all moving because of the control, the monolithic capitalistic control, right? So the people on that level are moving those goods and services that displace your life, right? They want to move into a nice neighborhood. And a nice neighborhood was built by you and I who had democracy and rent control. See, where they're coming from, it's a nightmare. They come from corporate parkland and suburbia. They want to live here because everything they've grown up with was designed by a monolithic, mind-numbing, quite idiotic, you know, set of developers or wherever it is they're coming from, you know, where there was no plurality at all. Right? San Francisco, what do you think of? Democracy, plurality, free exchange, you know, diversity and honesty in the newspapers. We used to actually have, you know, I know Hearst, but there's a lot more honest than you see now, you know, because, right? So the power is what they're manifesting. and the power goes to the people at that stratum. And so that explains how they can do that. They just get some money and buy your house, kick you out. It's very, very simple. It has nothing to do with actually producing goods and services. You work. You produce goods and services. You live in the city. The city, you built the city. Your ancestors may have built the city. Your father was a teacher in the city. Your parents live in the city. Your relatives. They don't care. They want your house, and they have the Obama bucks to pay for it. It's just issued through like an ATM, basically. Right? You push a button, out comes. There was, on the Jon Stewart show, he actually mentioned this, because in New York, which is like the capital of this sort of process, people throw the ATM receipts on the ground. And so somebody collected them and saw, well, the average person has $7 in the bank, right? Could barely pay the ATM fee. But some lie on the ground, some people have $300,000 in the bank. And they throw their stuff on the ground. This is the difference. The question isn't why you only have $7. The question is, how did they get the $300,000? They didn't produce any goods or services to do it. If they did, you would be getting paid to produce those goods and services. Instead, it's all what's called the global economy, and it's about shipping other people's resources out of their countries, and that using the power that entails to ship you out of where you live. Now that's a concrete example.
That was well put, and I have to get going here in a minute, but I just wanted to say, folks, that if you care about the health of society, that you have to choose your battles and figure out where you can lend a hand and help. And I guess the best thing would be to unplug from the illusion. And then the next best thing would be to apply yourself. There's this mentality that, oh, I have to get paid for, doing this service. Actually, I have to make these sacrifices, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, if you just did them, you'd realize that the work itself, in order to detach from the tentacles, is payment in itself. To be a role model and to create a new future is payment in itself. And so it's cool to ditch the yuppie mentality of, hopelessness and everyone's going to do my work for me, and just take on, like I said, choose your battles. Take on that practice yourself and reward yourself with that work, because setting a small example and showing people how it's done is the way that we make the correction, that we re-invert this reality into real reality rather than illusory reality. All right, folks. Well, we'll talk again real soon. This is your pal, Captain J. Rab, signing off.